Even in Trump 1.0, if you remember, while he was very supportive of India initially on the Pakistan issue, later, when he wanted Pakistan's support against the Taliban, he invited Imran Khan to the White House. And there he said he was prepared to mediate in Kashmir. And the Indian Prime Minister had asked him to mediate on Kashmir, which was just not true at all. And he
Right.
went ahead and did an agreement with the Taliban in February 2020, which was essentially seen as a withdrawal agreement, not a political settlement. So,
Right.
with every president, including Trump, there will be positives and there will be challenges.
You're watching The Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Ramananda Sengupta. Our very special guest today is Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh, who served as our ambassador to Paris, in Israel, as well as Washington. And we're going to talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to both France and the US, but mostly the US, and see what Ambassador's views are on that. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I know people who watch The Gist are familiar with you by now because I think you've been here often enough. So thank you for joining us, sir. And let's just take it from the top, sir. The US visit, Trump seems sort of very adamant on tariffs, but he seems to be willing to sort of coordinate on other issues. Is that going to be difficult to juggle?
I don't think so. So, if you saw clearly on tariffs, they've sent a message. Trump and the US administration, including in Trump 1.0, have repeatedly said that they feel that India's tariffs on items of export interest to the US are very high. And even this time, just before the Prime Minister landed, the US President signed an executive order calling for reciprocal tariffs on all countries. Now, this was not an India-specific measure. It was a general measure.
Right.
And not imposing immediately, but calling upon the administration to examine the manner in which reciprocal tariffs should be imposed on various countries. So it's a start of a process. Of course, one can say that there was a message in it. But that having been said, if you look at the joint statement that has been issued after the visit, in that there is a reference that the two countries will now start a process of negotiations leading to a bilateral trade agreement. And their aim would be to do a first tranche of that trade agreement by the fall of this year. Now, if that process moves well and that some kind of an arrangement is worked out, that it can very well be argued that because a limited trade agreement has now been done, the first tranche, and you're looking at a more comprehensive trade agreement, there is no need at this stage to impose reciprocal tariffs on India. Therefore, that kind of a problem could be dealt with for now. So I think the challenge now would be to see what kind of negotiations the two countries enter into and what is the outcome of those negotiations. So that's the first point. Second, if you look at the joint statement, right up front, there's a reference to a terminology compact, catalyze opportunity through military partnership, accelerated commerce and technology. So now that's a signal about where they want to take the relationship. One, that through dialogue, through negotiations, they want to raise the trading levels. And in fact, it has been indicated that by 2030, they want to take the trade value to $500 billion. Today is $200 billion. So in the next 5 years, a 2.5 times increase. So that's an ambitious target. So that's one. Second, they do want to do more on military partnerships. And in the comments that have been made and in the joint statement, there is an indication of where they want to go. One, certainly they want to do more supplies from US to India, including of high technology items. And the president spoke about potentially the supply of F-35, which they had not earlier offered to India. Of course, so far, India has not made a request for that. But that's a signal from the US that they are ready to go to higher level of technology releases. So that's one. Second, they're talking more and more of a defense technology partnership. In the earlier administration, US has authorized 80% technology for the G414 engine. and that
Right.
contract negotiations are on. Here again, there is a reference to that they will do more there. And the third element was that in the Biden administration, the two governments had launched a very ambitious initiative on critical and emerging technologies: artificial intelligence, quantum, biotech, cyber, 6G, semiconductors, space, defense. And a lot of progress had been made in some of the areas, especially semiconductors, defense, and space. And there was, some concern whether the Trump administration would be willing to take forward what was an initiative of the Biden administration. So
Right.
if you see again the comments that have been made, that although Trump didn't want the branding of the Biden administration, so they have renamed the ISET initiative now as Trust, transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. But if you see the language and substance of what has been there, it is Trust is just ISET another under another name. So it is
Hmm.
clear even in technology partnerships, US under Trump is also prepared to do high level technology partnerships, including in critical and emerging technologies. So I think, in response to your question, I would say that as of now, the two governments have been able to balance out the differences related to trade by
Hmm.
working on new mechanism and focusing on military cooperation as well as on technology partnership.
Hmm. Sir, even before Trump was elected, there was a lot of talk here in South Block and the MEA and things that we'd be far more comfortable dealing with Trump than what we've been dealing with Biden, simply because A, we worked with Trump before, and B, other political issues like human rights and other things which Biden and Democrats used to generally. How valid is that assessment?
So I would say that look, since 2000, the India-US relationship has consolidated in an accelerating trend with each administration, be it Democratic or Republican. The new process was started by Democratic Bill Clinton when he visited India in 2000. Republican George Bush transformed it significantly by doing a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with India, which enabled higher level technology releases. Democratic Obama visited India twice, and no US president had done that. Came to India as chief guest on our Republic Day. No
Right.
US president had done that. He declared support for India's permanent membership of UN Security Council, and declared India a major defense partner. And after that, when Trump came in, he placed India on what was called STA Level 1, Strategic Trade Authorization Level 1. And Democratic Biden started this major initiative on critical and emerging technologies, which helped both countries. Now, that
Right.
having been said, with each government, you will have differences because every government in the US will take decision based on political interests of their leaders
Of
and what
course.
are seen as their national interests. So even under Trump, we will have challenges. One is, of course, on tariffs. We've seen challenges related to the manner of deportation of illegal migrants who are there. And then Trump, in many ways, is unpredictable. For example, he said at the press conference with the Indian Prime Minister that he's ready to mediate on India-China issues. Now, that's something India
Yes.
doesn't accept. And then
I.
even in Trump 1.0, if you remember, while he was very supportive of India initially on the Pakistan issue, later, when he wanted Pakistan's support against the Taliban, he
Mhm.
invited Imran Khan to the White House. And there he said he was prepared to mediate in Kashmir. And the Indian Prime Minister had asked him to mediate on Kashmir, which was just not true at all. And he
Right.
went ahead and did an agreement with the Taliban in February 2020, which was essentially seen as a withdrawal agreement, not a political settlement. So,
Right.
with every president, including Trump, there will be positives and there will be challenges.
Hmm. So the other thing that has been is being discussed of late is that Trump has withdrawn from various sort of global pacts like the Paris Accord and then from WHO, various other UN uh, institutions. Does that make it easy for us to lobby for change in the UN such organizations, or is that should we just now, or how does that impact us in any way at
No, it
all, if at
certainly
all?
impacts us because, again, US will take decision based on the preferences of the political leaders. So at
Hmm.
the moment, they've again withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. Trump has again taken US out of the WHO. Biden had brought them back in after Trump 1.0. Now, when that happens, some of the funding at WHO will take a hit. some of the normative decisions and actions and discussions at the WHO would be impacted. Therefore, some of the research that WHO doing, some of the assistance it is providing, it will be impacted. All those can impact on India. Similarly, on climate change issues, climate change is impacting everyone. It is also impacting in India, and India has been taking now very, very proactive measures on our own to deal with global warming and climate change issues. So some of that cooperation can be impacted. But I think the way forward is for India to assess what it wants to do on its own, given its own interests, and partner with countries, including European countries, who are more forward leaning on these issues and may want to partner with countries like India.
So, which brings me back to the Prime Minister's visit to France. I'm told that we had to sort of play a delicate balancing act by sort of not really going, overboard on announcing major arms deals and things like that, in case it tends to offend Trump, who says that I would have given you that and things like that. Is that a correct assessment? Is that something we have
Well,
to do?
I wouldn't say that. Look, I would say that if you look at India's comprehensive national interest, clearly US is our most important partner. It's the largest trading partner. It's the
Right.
largest source of foreign investment in India. It's largest destination for outward Indian investment. At 5.2 million, the Indian origin population in the US is the largest single country presence of Indian origin population.
Right.
300,000 students in US universities, again, largest single country presence of Indian students in US universities. So, certainly, most important partner. But that having been said, US decisions can at times be at variance with India's interests. So, you
Right.
cannot put all your eggs in one basket. You need to
Absolutely.
hedge to make sure that where interests are not factored in, you have other partners that you can work with. And France is among those partners that has been supportive of India, with some level of consistency. And some of the strategic areas of cooperation, defense, civil nuclear, space, France is an established partner. So, and France again is part of the broader Western alliance system. So even in that system, you'd want a partner where if you are not in agreement with the US, you have
Right.
another partner that is mindful of your concerns. And again, Russia is another partner that we have to keep in mind
Of
because
course.
we have a historical political relationship with Russia, defense cooperation relationship, of late energy relationship. So every country builds its partnerships not to build, no, please, just one country, but to protect its own interests and hedge against uncertainties.
That makes sense. But I mean, my question was that did we have to sort of, even if we had made deals, did we have to tone it down a little before the US visit? That was, I
I
think.
would not agree with that. I would not agree with that. I think the deals that you need to do in your interest, you go ahead and do it. Others have to also adjust to what lies in your interest.
So the other thing that sort of, has always been of interest to me, that there is talk, although it's very unlikely that, while they might not just kiss and make up, but Trump is talking about some kind of a deal with President Xi Jinping over in China. How does that impact us?
So I don't think it impacts us because, I don't rule out that Trump might want to do a deal with China. Even in his first term, while his administration was very hawkish in terms of his pronouncements on China, in their national security strategy, national defense strategy, they came out with clear articulation that China was an economic predator, his trade policies were not fair, that it was a major rival for the US. And at the same time, US did a limited trade agreement with China in January 2020. And in June 2019, when Trump met President Xi on the margins of a G20 meeting, he said that if you buy more farm produce from the United States, I'll ease up the pressure on you. And they knew when they did the trade agreement that Chinese did not intend to buy, but he was signaling to his constituency that I am trying to get an agreement that will benefit you. So I don't rule out that he may want to do some kind of a trade deal. But that having been said, the US recognizes that it is in deep competition with China. Their leaders, including in Trump 1.0, and even now the comments that are coming forward, they see China as their main economic, technological, and military rival. They see China as the only country with the intent and capability to replace the US in the international system. The US Defense Secretary Hegseth was recently in Europe for a meeting related to assistance to Ukraine. And he said that US will not now provide assistance to Ukraine. Europeans need to step up because the US needs to focus in the Indo-Pacific, where it has to deal with its peer competitor, which is China. So the
Mm-hmm.
element of technology competition with China will remain, whatever be the deal they do with China. And so long as that remains, the US will find India a valuable partner because India is the only other country with 1.4 billion people and well established assessments related to skilled human tech capital. So, given that, the US companies have assessed that they need the India partnership to maintain their global lead in innovation. So I don't think we will be impacted by whatever adjustments the US makes for tactical reasons in terms of short-term approach to the China relationship.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing to hear because there were concerns here that if that particular thing is removed, we would lose some relevance with the US, which I don't think is right, but there was some. So coming more to the region, if you remember Trump before his elections, he had said something about Bangladesh and how he's pro whatever, and when that was raised during the presser after the meeting, he said, "I'll let Prime Minister Modi handle it." What does that statement mean? I mean, does he mean that he will not do anything whatever Prime Minister Modi does, or does he say that he should answer it more than me?
No, I think it basically means that in terms of approach to Bangladesh, in terms of US strategy in South Asia, they would
Mm-hmm.
perhaps be more willing to coordinate their approach in terms of the strategy that India works out for some of the countries in the region. So that's the kind of conclusion we can make at this stage. But we'll have to see how it plays out.
Which is a good thing, right? I mean, which allows us a certain amount of leeway, I suppose.
No, it's certainly a good thing, but it has also been said in the past. And then in the implementation, sometimes there are variants because each country again looks at specific issues from their interest. So this
Mm-hmm.
is a broad articulation of approach and policy, but when you get into specific implementation, you have to see whether it's actually carried out or not.
Of course, yes. So, and going back to the US, sir, how big a irritant is this Khalistani issue in bilateral relations? Is that a big issue, or do you think that's likely to be resolved soon with Trump already, sending back that Rana and people like that? Does that mean we're going to have more sort of cooperation on those kind of issues?
So Rana is not linked to the Khalistani issue.
I know,
Rana is linked to the Mumbai attack,
that's right.
and extradition of Rana has been a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Several U.S. governments have gone along with the need to extradite him. Rana had challenged it in courts, and that's why it's taken several years. And it was
Right.
finally when the U.S. Supreme Court cleared it that the administration is now taking the next step. So I don't think we should necessarily give any credence to the Trump administration on this aspect. That has
Mm-hmm.
gone on for a long time. But I think what I did notice is that in the joint statement that was issued, there's a specific reference to the fact that activities of those who attack diplomatic premises or create security challenges, challenge territorial integrity and sovereignty would not be acceptable. So I think that is a clear message in terms of some of those who have attacked our embassy, our consulates in the US, and carrying out anti-India activity. So let us see in practice how that is implemented, because again, from the some of the comments you've seen in India, I think there is dissatisfaction here that not enough action has been taken in the US by those
Mm-hmm.
who have openly espoused anti-India objectives, threatened violent action, or carried out violence against our diplomatic premises.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how that happens in implementation.
So, I think we're running out of time, but let's take a couple of quick questions that are remaining. One, of course, is extradition of this person is the illegal aliens kind of a thing. Well, we have tried to play it down by saying that we have always been against illegal migrants and we'd be happy to take back people who are there. We have had similar issues with illegal migrants from our neighboring countries as well, where the challenge seems to lie in our verifying that they're Indian citizens to begin with. There are lots of people who claim they're Indians when they go there, and then we take our time verifying them. We haven't had that problem with this particular batch that came in, and we may not have, but there's a whole bunch of illegal Indian migrants there? Are we going to sit there and process everybody's ID and
No, well, you have to, because but this is at one level, the deportation is not a new thing. It has gone on for
Mhm.
years and years,
Yes, of
even
course,
in
yes.
earlier administration. And the
Mhm.
normal process, and you see what happens is very often when an illegal migrant is about to be caught, they get rid of their identity documents, their passports, and whatever, so
Right.
that the U.S. authorities can't easily locate who they are. The second thing we've seen is that in many countries from South Asia, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, the migrants declare themselves as Indians, hoping to get better treatment in the US. Therefore, it is very important that in India we verify what their actual national identity is, because it can
Mhm.
have security implications for India. So
Of
I
course.
think, given the current mood in the US, what the Indian system has to do is perhaps expedite that process of nationality verification, so that
Mhm.
a certain number are cleared with some regularity once their nationality is verified. And once that has happened, the US authorities will see that we are not, delaying that, but really taking steps to advance that process. And the Prime Minister himself said clearly that India does not believe that anybody who has migrated illegally has right to live. And once the nationality is verified, we are ready to take them back. And so I think that should deal with the current situation. So the problem is not so much the fact of deportation. The problem right now is more the manner of deportation and the
Right.
way they're being done in US military aircraft, where they're being shackled. So that is creating some negative reaction. And one would hope that the US authorities will find a way to deal with that better. They're at the moment following their standard operating procedure of their immigration and customs authorities. And from the perspective of other countries, that's not really a very helpful procedure. So that's something they have to sort out for themselves.
Mhm. So you mentioned, Bangladeshis and Pakistanis all going and saying they're Indian, but you also have Indian origin people, let's say from Africa and other places, going there and saying that we are of Indian origin. Now, would we be willing to accept those people back? Because
No, I
technically they're
don't think
Indians.
that is a big problem. No, because nationality verification has to happen.
Mhm.
And I don't think that really is a problem,
Okay.
because they link their nationality to the country that they migrated from.
Hmm.
So it's more a theoretical sort of discussion rather than a real problem.
Okay. Fair enough, sir. So the last question. So would you like to sort of, just sort of, in a very broad manner, pick up one major sort of a challenge that we might face going ahead with the Trump White House, and one major opportunity that we should, make sure that we, I won't say exploit, but we leverage.
So
Just
I would
few.
say the challenge would be on tariff,
Okay.
trade and tariff issues. We have to watch that. Secondly, we'd also be concerned that while illegal migration is one issue, if there's a clampdown on legal migration, what happens to the H-1B visa issue and other things? The birthright issue. If there's a negative development there, then it can impact the current green card holders, the H-1B visa holders, and others. So these are things that we have to watch out for. So that would be in terms of the challenge, and also immigration. How it is done. If much larger numbers are sought to be deported. The
Hmm.
opportunity would be technology. I think there is a signal also from the Trump administration that they want to move forward positively with a technology partnership. So we should seize that, because there is a major reordering of supply chains happening. And again, in the joint statement, there is a reference that the US and India will work together on the reordering of supply chains and
That's
integrate
right.
their supply chains. So I think
Hmm.
that is the opportunity we should really seize as we are looking at the Indian economy growing more, as we are looking at higher GDP, as looking at taking the trade figures with the US to $500 billion. So I would say that's
Hmm.
the opportunity.
So overall, what I'm hearing from you is more or less a very positive sort of a impression of our Prime Minister's visit there. Of course, given the few sort of irritants that don't seem to be that big deal breakers on the way, would that be the right assessment to make?
No, I think so. So there are challenges, and we discussed that,
Yeah.
and we have to watch out for the pitfalls. But that having been said, the fact that the Prime Minister went early in the administration, he was the fourth visitor, will send a signal to all those in the incoming administration. Because as you're seeing, it's completely a new administration, not just at political level, but even at functional levels. And they'll
Right.
all be wondering about what is going to be the Trump approach to India, and therefore
Hmm.
what kind of policies they should advocate. When proposals come to them, how should they deal with that? And they will all get a signal that the US values the India relationship, President Trump values the India relationship, values his equation with Prime Minister Modi. So they would be more positively disposed towards dealing with issues that are of concern to India. So I think, again, from that point of view, it has been an important outcome of this visit, in addition to the substantive outcomes related to technology, related to military defense cooperation, and of course related to how they are handling the trade and migration issue.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. I think I've already exceeded the time you had given me, but I appreciate that. It was such a conversation, it could go on for a while. Thank you so very much, sir, and I look forward to having you with us again, because this is a relationship that is going to need watching, I suppose. Thank you very, very much, sir.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you. That was one of India's finest diplomats, Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh, who served as ambassador to Israel, to France, and the US, talking to us about Prime Minister Modi's just concluded visit to the US and the implications. I do hope you enjoyed this particular edition of The Gist, and I look forward to seeing you again. Till then, this is Ramananda Sengupta signing out.